we looking at next? We're looking at our library and a special photo here of probably two of the most famous cricketers ever in the world. Sir Donald Bradman, Sachin Tendulkar.
It was the only time they met, a rare crossover between eras, when the greatest batter in the modern game met the greatest of all time.
This photo was taken on Bradman's 90th birthday. There are only 4 examples of it in existence, and we're lucky enough to have one here.
Just 2 years earlier, Bradman had paid the young Indian a tribute he gave no other player.
I've only seen Tendulkar on the television.
Tendulkar's playing.
And I was very, very struck by his technique.
Oh, that's a lovely shot.
I asked my wife to come and have a look at him because I said, I never saw myself play, but I feel that this fellow is playing much the same as I used to play.
It was huge in India. Everybody in India said, right, who's the greatest there's ever been? There's Bradman. And now Bradman saying, this kid plays like me.
It's probably the greatest compliment any cricketer can get.
And suddenly the parallels with Bradman started to emerge.
The hunger for runs, the hunger to bat on and on.
When you look at footage of Bradman, he looks more dynamic. When he cuts and when he pushes off for a run, he looks like a modern player.
Nothing fazed them. They had an answer to every attack.
Hi, Sachin. Paul Kennedy from the ABC in Australia. Thanks for having us here.
I just loved the way he batted and he just made runs for fun.
Brilliant effort by Sachin Tendulkar. That brings the crowd to their feet.
Grandpa certainly had quite a fascination, I think, with watching him play, but it was more than that.
There's a technical aspect, but there's also skills, there's tactics, there's mental capacity, and there's physicality.
He throws so much at it that after he hits it, that front foot sort of overbalances slowly.
When I watched Tendulkar, I recognised a level of calm focus.
And I felt I was in that zone where I could actually figure out what the bowler was trying to bowl.
Thanks very much. Must have been a very special thing to witness.
It was.
There are also cricketers who wrote the book on fame.
It felt like the country weighed on his shoulders every time he went out to bat.
They kept sane and they kept their balance. They kept grounded through all that. Not an easy thing to do.
It just defies belief that you can keep it all together. And maybe their sanctuary was going out in the middle of the cricket ground.
The best I ever saw and the best I never saw. 2 players from opposite sides of the world and completely different eras. Bradman, who played only test matches, mostly against England, and Tendulkar, who played constantly, one-day internationals, test matches against all the cricketing nations. Everything was different for them. The pitches, the padding, the pay, the rules. When you look at their styles, they don't strike you as identical. Yet, in his 80s, for the first time in his life, Bradman saw something of himself in another cricketer. And I've always wondered whether he saw more than he was letting on. In fact, I reckon he saw a lot more, and I'm not the only one.
He was answering the question that he was asked in the context of talking about cricket. And could he have answered the question in different ways? Well, if there was a different question, then yes.
I've got plenty of questions, so I'm going back to where it all began for both players, and hopefully work out why they were able to achieve feats no other player has and probably never will.
Don Bradman, the possessor of more records than a gramophone company. I try and get as many runs as I possibly can, and if in getting those runs I should happen to break any record, well, naturally, I'm very pleased, but I do not deliberately set out to try and break records.
Well, he broke every single record there was to break in batting in the span of a year. At the start of 1930, he gets the 452 not out against Queensland, gets to England, he makes the 334 at Headingley.
Yeah, I think growing up, you know, Sir Donald Bradman, don't you, like the greatest cricketer of all time. You know the batting average.
You've got Donald Bradman as the famous 99.94, and then you have all the other all-time greats starting at about 60 and working down. So effectively you've got him almost double the next best.
No one's got close. Why hasn't anyone averaged 75, 80? And his poor series is borderline and he averaged 56. That's his poor tour.
As a kid growing up, if you'd asked me, tell me Australia in 2 words, I would have said kangaroo, Bradman.
There's so many elements to the story, holding, you know, the hopes of a country on his back, and a boy from the bush, practicing for hours on his own. I also like that he's a musician. He played piano.
As a grandpa, he was awesome. I adored him. I'd go to my grandparents' house after school. If he was there, he'd either be at the piano or he'd be up in his den if there was, say, an AFL game on, or maybe the cricket. Make no mistake, stiff competition in the backyard.
So he's hooking you for 4 in the backyard?
Oh, yeah.
He's a Davis Cup level tennis player. He can play snooker with Walter Lindrum. You just don't think it's real that anyone can have those sort of achievements. Thankfully, Bradman was born in Australia and decided to play cricket.
Are you enjoying your trip to England?
Oh, having a great time, thanks.
That's the idea. Every road led to Trent Bridge. Skies threatened, but the lure of the first test match prevailed, and till the ground was full, the turnstiles clicked without interruption. No money was wanted back by 26,000 cricket fans.
He's completely recalibrating the game, what people think is feasible for an individual to accomplish.
But I think it was a natural, aggressive intent. Bradman's first objective was to score runs. Tendulkar's first objective was to score runs.
The little master, the god of cricket. Like Bradman, Sachin Tendulkar was a star from the beginning.
Very talented player, schoolboy prodigy.
It's a wonder how he manages to lift that bat up and play that.
Played his first test at 16 and kept going for 24 years to become the highest run scorer in the history of the game. Like Bradman, Tendulkar also holds untouchable records, including scoring the most international centuries by far.
I knew that Sachin was on song and near a century because there'd be no traffic in Bombay, and that's unheard of.
Tendulkar goes big, takes him to 99.
Suddenly the word went round in a buzz that Sachin's on 90, Sachin's on 90. It was like wildfire. And everybody stopped in their tracks and looked for a television.
I definitely remember having a T-shirt of Sachin Tendulkar that I used to wear a lot. He was just a class above the rest. And then as soon as he stopped batting, I put my Aussie shirt back on.
Well, the new batsman, Sachin Tendulkar.
Well, it was during that tour in the early 90s. The Indians were in Australia, and that was my first sighting of Tendulkar. We'd heard a little bit about this prolific youngster, but I hadn't seen footage of him in action at that time.
Teenage sensation Sachin Tendulkar again showed off his considerable skills.
So first impressions are pretty impressive.
That's when I first saw greatness from 22 yards. Because it's one thing getting runs, it's another thing watching a kid who's 18 years of age dominate an Australian attack like the way he did.
Wax, there's a chance, it's fine, he'll get it, use his wide, he'll come back for the second, surely. Yes, here he comes, it's great running, well played, Sachin Tendulkar.
Yes, the youngest player to score a Test 100 in Australia.
By the end of it, I think Merv Hughes say to Alan Border, this little prick's going to get more runs than UAB.
Yeah, I probably do remember him saying that because, I mean, we just saw this kid, he's 18 and he's peeling off hundreds, and you're just thinking, well, if he stays injury-free, I mean, how many runs is this guy going to get?
And then he gets to Perth where the ball is flying and he plays this brilliant hand where he goes a shot a ball.
Oh, over the head of Gully, not going to catch that. That's 4 more. He really went after McDermott.
I think that Perth innings has to be one of the finest Test centuries that I've seen. I don't recall him missing a single delivery.
Beautiful 50 from this young man, a star of the future, Sachin Tendulkar.
You felt this guy is in a different league now. This is where he's moving from Tendulkar towards Bradman.
Drives, that could be it. Beats mid-on. Yes, it does. What a fine performance by Sachin Tendulkar.
So that's effectively a 2-axis chart. You're looking at total runs, total test runs, versus career batting average. Bradman and Tendulkar are the peaks on either of those axes. Tendulkar making the most runs over the longest period, and Bradman having the highest average by far.
He's one of those people that you just want to go and see. You know, I want Australia to win, but please let Tendulkar make a century.
Especially back in 2011. Sachin Tendulkar was in Australia with 99 international centuries to his name. But it didn't go to plan.
Don't see any reason why not. That's out. Yes, he is. Tendulkar's gone. Wow, what a tragedy. He looked as if he was bang on target for that century that he needs so badly.
The big moment finally came 2 months later in Bangladesh.
What a day for India, what a day for international cricket. It's an absolutely mind-boggling event, this.
To get 100 international hundreds in that era, it's like what Sir Bradman did, something special.
The following year, Sachin Tendulkar played his final match at his Mumbai home ground, Wankhede Stadium, having achieved feats no other player has come close to matching.
Not only made more runs than anybody else, but he's still sitting 5,000 runs ahead of everybody else.
It's not he deserves it. I think he was made for it. He's absolutely a legend, and now he's truly brought himself into the category of Don Bradman.
They don't build museums like this for many cricketers. We have artefacts and statistics, but not much vision of Bradman playing. It's why Bradman said he never really saw himself play. But what clips we have still tell a story.
You got after that one.
Yeah, he's watching very carefully, and as soon as he gets half a sniff of the length he can attack, he's thundering, he's right into it.
Not so many sixes?
I mean, I think Bradman only hit 6 sixes in his Test career, but he wouldn't have bothered because he didn't have to.
I was lucky enough to talk to Ray Lindwell. I was trying to get a bit of a handle on how you bowled a Bradman, and he just give it, bloody nightmare. He said the crack off the bat was just quite phenomenal.
But he was so busy. As you can see in this stuff, he scuttles between the wickets.
Bradman didn't tire over the course of the day. His partners would complain at 5:30. They were new to the crease and he'd been there all day and they were still at risk of being run out because he was that quick between wickets.
Even the question was asked back in the day, Don, how did you do it? And he's taken part in these instructional videos. Would you mind showing us 1 or 2 strokes now?
Just illustrate a few little shots for you, man.
Front foot cut. Look at that bat speed. Look at the bat speed on it.
And you have what is known as a hook shot. That covers practically the whole of the area.
You can hear it. It's like
right round the field. Then you also have what is known as a pull shot.
He demonstrates a pull shot of the front foot.
Then we have the late cut.
the very late cut.
He says late cut third. It's a shot no one plays now.
Going across with the left foot.
Do you think batting would be easier in those gloves or harder?
I don't know, actually.
Now the big contrast for me was the size of Bradman's bat, but then you play as the gear is at that time. So maybe Bradman needed to put a little more power behind his shots.
It was all so superbly coordinated. The hand-eye coordination, the use of the wrists.
Just like the way he uses his body weight as well, like it was all in like a bit of a flow state almost.
It was ultimately changing the sport, in my opinion. More so, I can't believe how small he was and yet how far he hit the ball, so it gives me great hope one day.
Well, it's a wonderful exposition, isn't it? You can see the alacrity with which he elaborates on those shots. You can see the wrist, you can see the bat speed. You can see the fact that he's conscious of every ball he receives being a potential source of a run.
He did like to dominate. He wasn't hanging around just waiting for a loose ball. He was making the loose ball. So that, again, is his consummate skill. And Tendulkar's that they were able to do that.
Have you shown Tendulkar these?
When Sachin Tendulkar was playing on the streets of Mumbai, this was a city of 10 million. Now it's double that. Cricket is everywhere, and even a game like this can get very serious very quickly.
Suddenly I've become a video referee.
It's great, good fun, really good fun. And you still see his face wherever you go. I'm on my way to Mumbai's Temple of Cricket.
Welcome to Wankhede Stadium.
Wow. You know, it's been one of the great dreams of my life to come here and have a look at this stadium. Oh, okay. Here it is.
The iconic Wankhede balcony.
Magnificent. And this is where the players stand and jump and celebrate.
The famous balcony that you saw on cameras with the 2011 World Cup victory.
India lift the World Cup. After 28 years, the parties start in the dressing room.
And that's where the opposing team
That's
sits.
the visiting team, this is the home team.
That's uncomfortably close, I would say, yeah. Okay, the famous steps.
Yes, this is where he walked out for one final time. And this is the first time that his mother, his family members were actually at the ground watching the match. I don't think any fan here did not have tears that day.
The memories that you've left with me will always be with me forever and ever. Especially Sachin, that will reverberate in my ears till I stop breathing.
If you look at India as a country, it's always driven by individuals. The hero worship in India is very important as a social fabric of the country.
Then along comes this teenager, this 15-year-old who starts playing against men right here and starts hitting centuries.
Now that's an inspiration for so many people to believe in their dreams and chase their dreams, because not often do you see a boy from Bandra coming from a middle-class family becoming a global icon, and it sort of gives belief to the billion-plus Indians that, hey, even we can do this.
Hi, Sachin.
Hi.
Paul Kennedy
Paul,
from the
lovely
ABC
to
in
see you.
Australia. Thanks for having us here.
Absolute pleasure.
It's the start of a new season and the first day for a new batch of scholarship students. It's 30 degrees and nearly 100% humidity. I'm the only one breaking a sweat.
There are 14 boys and 3 girls, and we are going to try and encourage them. This camp would be free of cost for them for a year.
So full sponsorship,
And
they don't have to worry about
absolutely
anything.
Nothing. They just have to turn up and play.
Yeah.
That's the least I can do. I think the game has given me so much. And well played. Shot. Good shot.
I'm going to show you the 1930
Excellent.
Bradman's Clinic.
I've seen this.
Yeah. Full shot must have been devastating.
Yeah. The bat speed was just incredible. When he's demonstrating pull and hook, it's like a whip.
Yeah.
It goes, you know, you can hear that.
That's what his teammates said, it sounded like a whip.
Yes, it did.
He could score 360 degrees, like the modern player.
Somebody who's well ahead of his time is always going to do that. Wherever he wanted to play and demonstrate it very briefly, you could see that control. I mean, you could see that authority and that confidence. Every ball you're playing, you're making a statement to a bowler, to a fielding side. Every ball you're conveying that message.
So when you're coaching young players now, what are you looking at?
Overall setup, I think for batting, balance is really important. The grip, back lift, all those things are important. But intent is more important than anything else. When I started playing, the first thought in my mind was to hit a ball for a boundary. And if the ball was a decent ball, then I would look to punch it in a gap wherever. If it was better than that, then maybe, you know, guide it for a single. A little better than that, block it, and if I had to let the ball go, then
that's plan D.
That was my last option, to let the ball go. The first option always was to hit the ball.
Which is very much the way Bradman approached batting.
Absolutely.
I'm going to ask you, what do you think Sir Donald Bradman saw in you that he recognised in himself?
That's a tough question to answer. That's a massive statement. And I was only 22 then, 22, 23, yeah. I mean, for a 22, 23-year-old professional athlete, to hear something like that, it was like worth in gold, his words.
But now, as an older man, looking back, you think he was talking about something more?
It wouldn't be right of me to speak about what the similarities or whatever. I would leave that to his family. And तुझा लेग स्टंप वरती उभा राहणार ना, लेग स्टंप कुठे?
When I think about what Grandpa thought of Sachin, he had such admiration for the man first and foremost. And I can't ever remember that not being the case. It was, I think, resonating with a sense of this is another person who has put in the work to know himself and to channel that into unlocking his potential to the fullest extent. And I think that is preparation. And I reckon that what Grandpa would have said is he did all of this prep work when he was a child growing up. Shepherd Street was a very, very full house. Full not just of people, but full of laughter and full of curiosity. I think there was a real sense of, aren't we lucky to have this one life? Let's all go out there and eat it up. Sitting at the piano with his big sister, learning from her, a real sense of support and camaraderie and, bottom line, I guess, family. Anyone, I think, who grows up in a household full of sport and creativity and, music and art is a lucky human.
What's the general reaction when people come and visit this house?
Well, quite remarkable, and I'm always surprised. When you go to a historic house, you're treading the same boards, you're breathing the same air. It's as close to a person as you can get. Please, come on in.
Okay, thank you.
This is where Don and his brother Victor slept. All the vents are original, and this is the parlour. The Bradmans were a very large family. There were 5 children. Behind that piano against that wall is in fact the tank stand. You can imagine Don's sisters, who each played the piano, trying to practice while Don's making a racket out there.
Bradman never knew which way that ball was going to twist and dart next, and trying to follow its flight gave him an eye like a gimlet and wrists like quicksilver.
But of course at the time when I was doing it, it had no meaning at all for me other than the fact that I was just enjoying myself. I used to play away for ages out there on my own, and it was just fun.
I had one golf ball which was slightly out of shape, and I got this weird idea that, why not, use a blade and start cutting the ball and make it kind of egg-shaped ball. And then I would ask my aunt to throw that ball at me, and I would be practicing back foot defense with soft hands in the living room. I had to play with soft hands, otherwise it would break everything in the house.
You see so many athletes that have such unique capabilities. They're almost inventing games for themselves where you're not getting that from normal training regimens. So for both Tendulkar and Bradman, learning to play the game with golf balls to make it even harder for themselves, tapping into imagination and that dreamlike state, it feels like both of them seem to have.
Oh! So this is the tank stand?
Yes!
This is where it all happened. So
can I touch it?
Of course you can. You can even hit a golf ball against it as well.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful. We are touching you down. You are touching you down. It's going away. I'm getting goosebumps, and it's a great feeling that, I am walking on the same place where Sir Don used to practice.
Whoa! Oh, careful.
The moment I come here, I feel he's walking.
So this is where you grew up with Sachin?
Yes,
a
absolutely.
Special place.
This was his building actually, 4th floor. Yeah. And I used to live on the 3rd floor. And all the cricket, as you can imagine, used to happen in the grounds.
Yes.
Or in this lane. He used to love injuring us. He used to bowl those bouncers with the rubber ball 3 steps and used to go boom.
Yeah.
So he enjoyed the bowling more than the batting when he used to come here.
Tough to face.
Tough?
For you.
Impossible. You will not believe the speed at which that man used to bowl.
Really?
And he used to cheat. He used to go 2 paces up and he used to bowl. And I can assure you that rubber ball was at the speed of what Brett Lee is bowling. I swear to God.
I was a naughty kid, I would say, completely out of control. I don't know how my parents were so patient with me. I actually fell from a mango tree.
Right.
And my brother said, enough is enough, he has to go, and he's got too much energy.
Yeah.
He's got to go on cricket field and practice there or join a summer camp.
The mango tree was right here and Sachin had climbed up on it and one of the branches fell down with a loud crunchy sound which I remember it vividly. I don't know how Ajit saw what he saw in a 12-year-old and he was proved right and all the mischief came to use, I guess.
My friends tell me that whenever I was batting, my brother was never contactable. He would go on long drives. He didn't want anyone to tell him what was happening in the match. Once the series got over, we would sit at home together and watch all my innings hours on end.
So he was another coach. Oh.
Yeah, I mean, he was my coach from the time I picked up a cricket bat. There were challenging moments along the way. That is where the family comes into play. My father was a professor, also a poet. He wrote a few books. My parents also enjoyed music. Mother would be sometimes, humming songs. Both my brothers followed cricket, and my sister, who gave me the first cricket bat of my life, always made sure I was in a good space. And then when I got married, it was Anjali, then Sara and Arjun, my children. Right from my first game in my life till the last game in my life, I got nervous before I was playing. I remember Anjali telling me, "Are you sulking with me?" I said, "No, I'm just preparing for the game tomorrow." I'm in a different zone now. Athlete goes through various emotions, highs and lows, and to be so patient in this partnership was really important. It was a combined effort, and that's why I say that I felt like a Formula One car where multiple guys were working for the team, and I was the face of the team. And I would join my parents only on weekends and my friends in Bandra, but otherwise I lived in Shivaji Park.
Shivaji Park is perhaps the most famous of the Maidans in Mumbai.
It's 10 o'clock on a Sunday morning and there are hundreds of cricketers here in the one place. No net sessions today. This is more of an informal games, not much defence, all out attack. And this is what they do all the time.
If you get caught by a player in the game next to you, you're out.
Well, that might be the biggest thrill of my modest sporting lifetime. You feel like you're at the centre of cricket here. The other thing I've noticed is this stifling heat, but the players seem unaffected by it. The cricket is non-stop in Mumbai. They're playing, they're practicing, they're being coached. Sure, there are academies, but it's this volume of cricket that makes India a world power in the game. You've got to watch where you're looking, by the way. They're hitting sixes and fours all over the place.
In India, there's a much stronger tradition of the student and the guru, and in Tendulkar's case, that's Ramakant Achrekar.
Achrekar sir's influence was huge in my career. He had tried changing my grip.
So his thought was too much bottom hand?
Yeah, I mean, he felt if I could hold the bat slightly up on the handle, it would change my game. But he was sharp enough to understand that it's taking away my natural flair, the control that I had.
And so sometimes it's better to let a young player do what is working rather than
100%.
overcoach.
Just important to make minor adjustments here and there. It's like cooking food. If the salt is missing, you don't start cooking again. You just add salt. A little bit of variation can, change the taste. And the same thing here. Minor adjustments can change your game. So it's important when not to coach as well.
I saw him first as a school kid and he was playing against some of the fastest bowlers in the nets. The way he batted, I remember going back home and telling my wife that, look, here is a special talent.
Then he makes his Ranji Trophy debut at 15. He gets picked for India to go to Pakistan in 16.
And by the time he was 16, he might have played more matches than any 22, 23-year-old. When he played his first test, he was in overdrive already.
So, Makar Yunus to Tendulkar. That's a good shot. That's 4 runs.
And then to go and play the pace attack like that. I mean, Imran, Wasim, Waqar, he just battled through.
Again, Tendulkar, he doesn't like it quick at all. I think he may have taken that on the face.
So early on in my career, I realized that if I have to be successful against fast bowlers, I should be able to punch on my back foot. I liked a lot going on my toes, and I thought I was able to transfer that power behind the ball. My back foot shots invariably would be there and this. So I would punch the ball, not go full flow. When I got on the toes, I was able to be on top of the ball and I was able to generate power.
Holy cow. Tendulkar heaving away through mid-wicket.
You could just see how poised he was at the crease. Nothing really fazed him. You got bowlers coming in and bowling at 150 Ks. He wasn't fazed by that.
It's not a bad shot either.
He loved pace. He loved someone coming at his head. He just got into great positions, always had time to play the quicks. When you have that much time, it makes a huge difference.
He was quick to get into position, but he was often late to play shots, so it was really hard to fool him. Maybe try and hit it.
I understand.
Thanks, Siri. Where do you bowl to Tendulkar? He didn't answer, did he? He doesn't know. Siri doesn't know where to bowl to Tendulkar.
From the time it leaves the bowler's hand until it reaches you is of the order of a seventh of a second. So in that short space of time, you've got to make up your mind where that ball is and either try and play a scoring shot off it or a defensive shot or get out of the road. Now, that is a pretty tall order.
I think Bill Ponsford said that the secret to Don's quite simple. He sees the ball a yard sooner than the rest of us. His eyesight wasn't exceptional. It's just this very particular gift.
I can only imagine bowling to someone like Bradman. Like, you just would have felt like it wouldn't matter where you pitched the ball. He had an option and an answer to that. He knew instantly when the ball was pitched what shot he was going to play and exactly where his body would end up.
Obviously, his brain was calculating what was happening just that little bit quicker than everyone else.
And I think that's what you see in Tendulkar. He had a gift as well, like Bradman. He was just a little bit better than everybody else and he exploited it.
So the machine says 84 miles an hour. It's just under 140. That's actually the average pace of opening bowling at Test level through almost every era for the last 100 years. And he's pretty comfortable. So I'll try and face that fast bowling for everyone out there that wants to know what it's like from a park cricket viewpoint. Is there anything you can tell me so that I don't get hurt while I'm facing that speed?
I reckon if you stay pretty side on, maybe stay sort of leg side of it, so maybe this side of the stumps, get the bat in the way. That's why we use it.
Yeah, all right. Cool.
Perfect.
Thanks, mate. We'll see how we go. So we're starting at about 90 kilometres per hour. That's just slightly above what spinners bowl in Test cricket. So, and then we'll go up in 10s and see if I can react.
Oh, he's hit the middle of the bat 3 times. It's too slow. Oh, this is Bradman. Oh, there we go, solid. He struggled a bit there at about 112. This might be 120, 125, so we'll see how we go. I'll go up a bit faster. He's shaking in his shoes down there.
Didn't see it.
Didn't see it. That's gone through to the wicket keeper before he's played a shot. Bang on 140. Deep breaths. It'll only bruise for a week.
No, 3 weeks, my age.
All right, we'll try red. See if he picks a red one up. Here we go. Shot. He likes the red ones.
Well, that was an experience like no other for me. My heart was beating out of my chest. I was perspiring and I was only there for a few minutes. It's mind-blowing to know how fast that is, and it will be really interesting now to get into the lab to find out what Bradman and Tendulkar were able to do in 0.4 of a second. What we want to do is bring Don Bradman back to life in a way that he's never batted before.
Through Sam
in
Harper.
3D.
Pretty similar.
Because there's always...
Domestic average of about 27.
So you're exactly right in between Bradman and Tendulkar's height. What are you thinking about this question of were they similar? What's your starting point today?
I think it's trying to find what are those points of similarity and trying to recreate those.
So we're going to do straight drive first.
But its aim should be just wide of the stumps.
So I think I need to be exaggerate the thumb over, gets his head into the ball, comes near, and then snaps his bat and finishes with his weight right through
his
there.
hands are quite close to his body though the whole time through.
All right. Well, let's
give it a go.
Let's give it a go.
His head is actually slightly over the offside.
So an off drive slightly to the, and head slightly over to the offside.
Slightly over to the offside, yep. So his bottom hand and his top hand were slightly apart, and his arms are quite straight. Yeah, that's good. Oh, look at that. I've gone back in time.
Do you reckon I can speak like him? This is the straight drive.
And he doesn't quite get fully up onto his toes. Looks good to me. Probably a boundary too. His devastating pull shot.
Oh wow, he really rotates on that. This will be a hard one to do because this is very abnormal.
Yeah, and he comes right around at the end of it. Yeah, that's more like
good.
it.
Should we try the late cut? Well, let's reintroduce that to the sporting public.
Okay.
Oh my word.
Oh, there you go.
That's actually going to be harder than I thought. He squats.
His first step is back and across nearly every shot that he plays.
He almost falls over the offside.
It's a long way.
It's a bit lower.
Yeah, and his hands are on his, yes, yeah.
Okay, ready for Sachin? And a quick look at the straight drive.
Yeah, and there's tap tap with his foot. Yeah, that's it.
Off you run. How does he hold it?
Exactly. Can we compare the pull shot?
Front foot goes, then his back foot, and he uses his leg to counterbalance.
Close.
Get your left leg up higher. Yeah.
That's
It's
good.
quite a remarkable shot, really.
The improvised cut shot.
They broke convention, didn't they, these guys? Yeah. Well done.
Nice.
All right.
That's not easy to do.
Sensational.
I can log this in AMS as a batting session.
Yeah.
So it's meant to be a day off.
Okay, this is a bowler's nightmare. Bradman and Tendulkar walking out to bat. Magic.
So we're going to play them side by side for you guys. We're going to have the camera rotate around them, so give you guys a view that's never been seen before.
And to see the path of the end of the bat, which is a really good way to see it in this 3D image where you can swing it around and see it at different angles. Stance obviously very different. And they were both very good with their footwork, but Don Bradman in particular moved around a lot in his crease. Very quick to identify the ball, big rotation, so he finishes with his whole body facing the direction of the ball. In fact, I think he spins before he runs. Tendulkar, on the other hand, a little bit more down the power end, really hitting the ball rather than stroking it as Bradman does.
What's your view on whether or not they batted in a similar way?
They look similar at the start and then they become different afterwards. On the straight drive, Bradman finishes with his bat over the shoulder. Tendulkar finishes with the bat around the shoulders, partly because of the way that they generate their speed.
So, if you've been inside the mind and movements of Bradman and Tendulkar, are they similar?
In a skill sense, not really, from my end. I think maybe one skill thing they would have done very similar would have had a very still head and played the ball under their eyes. So there was certainly a few things that they would have done similar.
Do you think it's possible that Bradman was seeing something else in Tendulkar?
I think he was seeing confidence, attitude, mindset, concentration. I think he was seeing a whole range of things. Some of it marries up to technique from a physical perspective, but I think a lot of it's between his ears.
It was just his compactness and his stroke production, his technique. It all seemed to gel as far as I was concerned. That was how I felt.
From my side, I thought the statement came at a time where I felt, wow, I need to push harder. I think it's the best tonic one can get. To feel that you are being noticed and your game is being appreciated. It came at the right time.
Even as a large section of the Indian population of Sharjah was trying to get into the ground, Australia's chances were diminishing.
I remember on that 1998 tour, we were Tendulkar-centric at that stage.
Through the gap, on the offside, listen to it.
It was nuts. If you were trying to move a fielder, unless they actually looked at you, they could not hear you.
Oh, he's hit this one, Miles. Great shot. Oh, it's a biggie. What a player. Well, this little man is the nearest thing to Bradman there's ever been.
I've always felt that cricket is at its best and most exciting when you've got a slow spin bowler bowling to a champion batsman. Then I feel you've always got incident.
That smash back straight back over the bowler's head.
The build-up for Warne versus Tendulkar was just unbelievable.
And Tendulkar greets him by dancing down the track.
When Warne would get the ball, it wasn't quite as loud as Tendulkar, but it was loud. It was just, two legends of the game going at each other.
There was a genuine thought process put behind that before even Shane Warne landed in India.
Australia came to India and played the Ranji Trophy champions, played Mumbai.
I got runs in that match. I got a double 100 and my friends were congratulating me.
And he said, there's something wrong here.
Warne hasn't shown the trump card to me. He hasn't bowled a single ball round the wicket. At a critical stage in a test match, I know for sure that he's going to go around the wicket. And that's when I called a few of my Mumbai colleagues who played cricket with me.
And one of the leg spinners there was Lakshman Sivaramakrishnan. It was a beautiful leg spinner. And he bowled to him, I think, for 2 or 3 days.
He worked out that you could use Warne's amazing leverage of spin against him. You know, Warne spun the ball vast distances, but that did actually give you room to manoeuvre the ball around the field.
And in the first innings, he galloped down the pitch to Warne and whacked him for 4. And he tried again, perhaps a little boldly, and he nicked off to slip.
He's out! He's out!
You know, Warne won the first contest. So it was seemingly like if Warne continues to win it, we're going to win.
And the turning point in that series is when Warne goes round the wicket.
I had 2 options. One was to go over mid-wicket if the length was close enough. And the second option was if the ball was landing in the rough patches, then to be on top of the ball, then the unevenness of the surface doesn't come into play at all.
Tendulkar kind of eyed him off and waited with a brilliant combination of letting the ball go, soft hands, watching and then pouncing.
And Tendulkar plays a slog sweep over mid-wicket.
Slog swept it into the distance. That was like a cannon going off, really, in terms of the game and the series.
And you think of defining moments in sport, for India, I think that was one of the defining moments. He does that.
Warne kind of got caught up in the mind trap that Tendulkar laid for him. The more he tried using his core skill, the more Tendulkar put him off and took him on.
Did it seem as significant at the time as what we now know it was?
Yes, it certainly did.
Sachin Tendulkar's unbeaten 155 looked even better after one of the greatest innings in modern cricket.
I don't think there's been anyone besides Bradman that's probably even in the same class as Sachin Tendulkar. He's just an amazing player.
When Tendulkar was batting, he could have been batting in total silence. His capacity for shutting out what was happening around him is absolutely extraordinary.
When I was batting at my best, my conscious mind was always at the non-striker's end and my subconscious mind was at the striker's end. Because bowler is constantly asking you questions. Your conscious mind has to pick that. Then once you've picked, within that fraction of a second, you have to surrender yourself to your subconscious mind. Whatever is stored in the computer, as we call it, it takes over and you react.
That's brilliant from Tendulkar. He knew exactly where the space was.
I think that's fascinating. I remember showing Grandpa a book on flow state, so this idea of engagement and meeting the world in flow, having this experience of time standing still. I don't know if he was sort of in 2 places at once as well, but what an extraordinary capability.
When you're not in that state, you're trying to think about what the bowler's going to do, whereas when you are in that state, you know what they're going to do, and you probably can't explain why you know that. It's sort of elusive to most people most of the time.
When I started playing cricket, it was pressure-free cricket because there was no pressure of expectations. My father had given me the freedom to fail as well.
These days in sport, there's a real focus on mindset. Folks like Ben Crowe, Ash Barty's mindset coach, and others. And this appreciation of the importance of getting to know who you are as a person.
Both of them talk about setting dreams, but not necessarily making them expectations. You know, Tendulkar's dad said, I just want you to try your best and not care about the consequences. Well, that's a superpower, because most of us get distracted by the consequences. I think Tendulkar often said, look, the critics don't know what I'm thinking or how I'm preparing and so forth, so why would I listen to them?
Everybody draws comparisons with Bradman and Sachin in terms of record. But very few people, this is the first time that anybody is coming to me with a comparison of impact and of conduct and the timing of that impact and the conduct and what it did to the 2 different countries.
What Australia lives to in the early period of Bradman's career is economic hardship and a sense of being abandoned a little bit within the empire by Britain.
That was one place Australians could feel that pride, beating England at their own game. I think it was a big part of that.
Now look at where India was India's come of age as an economic power around 93, 94, when the country opens up, foreign investment comes in, and India is now an open country as opposed to a closed socialist-driven economy. As India grew to take its place in the world, also grew the awareness that we could be as good as anybody else in the world, which under a colonial regime we were not allowed to believe.
So he was very much part of that whole explosion at that time. And he was the adopted son of the country. And he took it very seriously. He actually unified the country into a nation. That is when they started comparing him to Bradman, because Bradman had the same unifying power. It was strange, but I think a little unfair because of the kind of pressure that was put on him.
Every time he went out, the entire nation would sit up and watch when is he going to get 100. If he didn't, they treated it as a failure. I know he might have felt very lonely at times. When you reach those heights, it can be a very lonely place to be because you're the only one there who understands what's happening.
Both Bradman and Tendulkar must have felt the weight of the world at different times from the expectations of their millions of followers, and certainly in the case of Tendulkar, literally millions of followers.
Sachin never left. He still lives here. How does he live here in this city and have a life?
Even today, if he goes to a restaurant, if he comes to Wankhede, he's going to get mobbed. So that's something that he's made peace with, and he tries to live around that. Even if he wants to drive his fast cars, he steps out at 1 a.m. or 2 a.m. in the morning, and that's pretty much life for him.
It's a package deal, and I wouldn't compromise on anything. I think whatever I have received so far in my life, it's a blessing from up above. There are very few people in this world who love doing something, and people actually love watching what they are doing.
I feel today, amidst all these lights and cameras and so on, somewhat like a movie star.
I think fame to Grandpa, he simply did not engage with it. He saw it as, at best, an illusion, and at worst, a jail cell. I think that it did mean that others could create a version of him that deviated from who he was.
From a journalistic point of view, he could be challenging. He grew weary of it, very, very weary of it. He thought it was intrusive.
I'm sorry to say that this is going to be my last tour in this country, and that I do not intend to play cricket anymore, even in Australia. So all you journalists who've had such a wonderful time at my expense over the last you better get busy because this is the last chance.
He thought that he'd done his bit. And in fairness to him, he did do his bit.
Farewell to the stage on which he'd been the star for 20 years.
And you have to remember with Bradman that the pressure extended beyond playing hours, particularly when he was a leader for so long.
I would honestly think that I get just as much mail today as I ever got in my life. And it is quite common for me to have to spend 3 or 4 hours a day just dealing with the mail.
Bradman answered every letter that people wrote to him. I mean, that's a real grounding that he thought, these people are writing to me, I'll take the time to respect that and write back to them. I think it's very telling.
Hold on a sec. I don't think anyone has seen this letter. My neighbor, Mr. Gowarikar, his son is my dear friend Avinash. I was hardly 7-8-year-old. I had gone to his house, and that's when his father was talking about Sir Don. And he said, I've got something really, really precious, a handwritten letter by Sir Don. The letter says that he was disappointed. One regret in his life was he was not able to play cricket in India.
My father was a great cricket enthusiast, and he had reached out to Sir Don with a simple letter which I would, call a classic fan mail. It's just a very, very prized possession of my father, and I've kept it with the same emotion with me.
It speaks a lot about the person that he was. Playing cricket, people would love you, but what happens beyond cricketing years is also equally important or possibly more important, and that is where the person that you are comes into play. It's a precious thing.
Sir Donald Bradman is used to getting fan mail by the bucket load, but today the procession of posties started earlier than normal with a barrage of deliveries which went on for most of the day.
At that point, Grandpa was not very well. He'd had a number of mini strokes over the past period of time. He was obviously very quiet about that, as with everything in his private life. I hope he doesn't mind me saying that.
The celebrations have been going on all week. India's star batsman Sachin Tendulkar flew into Adelaide last night to join in.
I was actually in the middle of a camp in Chennai, and my manager told me that on Sir Don's 90th birthday, he's invited you to Australia, and he's actually asked if I could meet him at home.
I know that it was hard for Grandpa, I think, to invite someone over at that point, but it meant a great deal to him, that's for sure.
Going to Sir Don's house, 2 Holden Street, was an unbelievable experience.
With him was Australian spinner Shane Warne, who has also received high praise from Sir Donald.
The funniest bit was a drive with Warne to Sir Don's house, and Warne said, "You got to start the conversation," and I said, "No, you are from Australia, you're a local kid, you should be starting the conversation, I shouldn't be." And he's telling me, what am I going to discuss with him? You two are batters, you both should be discussing batting, and I will stand there and listen to him.
Well, Paul, this is the lounge room at my parents' house. They sat there beside each other like two young gentlemen, and big smiles on their faces, very nervous, and but chatted and were very outgoing.
I think it's fair to say Grandpa was nervous. Absolutely. He called up Dad and said, "They're coming round, can you come up?"
And he said, "I haven't played for years," and these 2 young men at the very top of their game said, "What am I going to talk to them about?" But they all found plenty and they got on very well.
He was just unbelievably sharp, and he kept up with what was happening currently in cricket.
I think the thing that was most conspicuous to my mind was Sachin's eagerness to try to find out what really lay behind the scenes. You know, he was going to get the good oil on my father's magic.
The obvious question from our side was, what would you have average in today's cricket, Sir Don? And he said, maybe around 70 or so. I said, why 70? He goes, 70 is not bad for a 90-year-old kid, my kid.
He tried again and he said, "Now, how do you prepare before you go and play? So, how do you prepare? How do you prepare your mind?"
His answer was simple. I mean, I went to work, I turned up, got runs, went back to work. Life must have been completely different then. I mean, now, professional athletes, pre-match preparation, post-match recovery, all those kind of things, it's a different approach now, but in those days, life was different and challenging.
To Sir Donald Bradman, with best wishes on your 90th birthday from Sachin Tendulkar, 27th of August, 1998. A candlestick holder, a beautiful one.
It's lovely, isn't it? It was a very special visit, and they were such delightful young men.
Well, each of them are very humble champions.
Very, yes. I think they judged each other in that way. All of them were very modest people.
Must have been a very special thing to witness.
It was.
Thanks very much.
I think that Shane being there that day would have been a comfort to Grandpa. He loved Warne. You know, someone who he knew, someone who he trusted and respected, to meet someone that he admired so much and had never met.
That official photo was front page news in India.
But we in India interpreted that as saying that Bradman has anointed his heir. Bradman's heir is Tendulkar.
I think I'm probably inclined to see it for what it was at the time, which was a really special meeting between 2 men who had affection for each other and admired each other.
Only 4 copies of the photo were printed. There's the one at the Melbourne Cricket Club and another at the South Australian Cricket Association. The other 2 went to India. One to Tendulkar's manager, Mark Mascarenhas, and the other in Sachin's house in Bandra West. Well, here it is. It's a special photograph capturing a special time in cricket history. I knew the Tendulkar family had a copy, but I didn't know that Sachin kept so much more Bradman memorabilia. one champion's tribute to another.
Warne didn't make it into the official photo, but the photographer got the three of them in a separate shot. The one the Australian papers went with.
You're the only one who remains from that photo. Do you miss Shane Warne?
Yes. For me, he'll always be there, and I hate using this word was. With Warne, I mean, I shared a wonderful relationship and we've had some wonderful moments. It's hard to accept that he's no more with us, but the memories that he's left with us will always stay deep within our hearts. I was in England last year and went to a restaurant which was right next to Warne's house, and I actually could feel his presence. Tough to lose a friend. Tough to lose a friend like that.
We must not become complacent. We must see to it that youth appreciates the virtues of cricket and continues to play it. And that brings me towards the close.
What did Bradman see in Tendulkar?
I think he saw a batsman who had such command of his game, a bit like Bradman, that he could take the decision-making away from bowlers completely.
Bradman didn't say he's the second Bradman. Bradman said the way he plays reminds me of me.
Perhaps to some extent, there's a little bit of a misty-eyedness as he's getting older and he sees this player and he thinks, I think that's how I played.
For me, the connections between the two of them are very much around mindset and attitude and determination to be themselves.
He must have seen something special. He must have been in that zone to see someone else and then get that feeling that this bloke's in the same zone too.
I think he'd recognise the calmness, the joy. He often had a smile on his face, playing. He just really enjoyed it. I think Tendulkar had the same. The legacy from both of them is to enjoy the game.
I think that's something that Bradman and Tendulkar had in common, was that despite the fact that cricket is a finite world with finite possibilities, they were never bored by it. They were always fascinated by it. You never got the feeling that either of them would have rather have been doing anything else.
This has been my passion. If you want to grow, you have to continue to be a student of the sport. The moment you stop being a student, you stop progressing.
They both just enjoyed batting. I think that's at the fundamental core of it. If you enjoy that and you're good at it and it reinforces that you just want to do more of it.
They probably just treated cricket like they were still playing in the backyard, even at the international level. They didn't want to stop batting. They just loved batting.
There is no dispute with who was the greatest batsman ever, and there is no dispute about who's the god of cricket.
We're not going to see another Bradman. We may well never see another Tendulkar. But for those who missed Bradman, we've seen Tendulkar, and we should be very, very grateful for that.